Morning, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic. How about you, sir?
I'm doing terrific. How's the things up in the Pacific Northwest this morning?
You know, it's going to be hot today. And no rain, believe it or not.
Wow.
We haven't had a lot of rain the last few weeks. It's actually almost been like summer here in August. It's been kind of nice.
Funny, I grew up there. I grew up in Linwood.
Yeah, you know, I was just reading that, and I didn't know that. When did you leave Linwood?
Well, I graduated from high school in 1981 in Linwood High School. I was in the Army at that point for about 6 years. Left at 19 years old, and all my family is still there. They still live up there in Mill Creek and Mount Vernon, and my sisters, my mother, they're all there. They're still home for me.
So you get back every once in a while and hang out with the fam and stuff?
Absolutely. Was there just a few weeks ago.
Now, when you are home, do you have a lot of, maybe new relatives that you didn't know that you had?
There are definitely a lot of folks, not just in Seattle, but everywhere that have seen mixed martial arts in the UFC and now gotten the chance to find me on the screen as well. So that's been an interesting change in my life for sure. But certainly some of my old high school buddies and friends are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. It's always fun to go home and see some of the guys I grew up with.
Now, acting is not really new to you. You've done it for a little while, but was Expendables, the first movie, probably the biggest movie that you had done up to that point?
No question, the biggest project, the biggest film that I've been a part of. In the last couple years, the jobs have been getting bigger and better, and I've been running at this for about 7 years now, so it has been a little while, and it takes a while to kind of get your feet wet and learn the ropes, and now to be part of this project has been amazing. It was a great group of guys.
You started off in boxing. Now, when did you go from boxing into mixed martial arts, and did you think the sport would get as big? I mean, I think it's actually bigger than boxing now. Did you think it would get as big as it did and as fast as it did?
Well, I've always been a huge boxing fan as a kid, but the truth is it's the one sport my mom would never let me really do. I got to do a little bit of boxing when I was in the Army, but predominantly my entire life I've been a wrestler. I started wrestling up there in Linwood, Alderwood Junior High and Linwood High School, and then wrestled in the Army. Was a state champion in Washington my senior year as a collegiate wrestler, and then went to college at Oklahoma State. Was an All-American there a couple of times, and so predominantly transitioned my wrestling and years of wrestling experience into fighting. And boxing and kickboxing was something that I was always interested in and played around with in the Army to get out of regular PT and running in boots. But wasn't a terribly extensive thing for me until I started fighting in mixed martial arts.
Expendables 2 out this Friday. How much bigger is this movie than the first one? And I got to say, I loved that first movie, and I went into it not knowing what to expect and came out of it going, I think that's probably the best action movie I've seen in 15 years. So how much bigger is this movie than the last one?
Surprisingly, you would think with that cast of guys in the first movie, as successful as it was and how much action was in it, that it couldn't get any bigger. And danged if they didn't make it a lot bigger. Certainly adding a couple new names with Jean-Claude Van Damme as the bad guy in this one, and bringing in Chuck Norris and Scott Adkins. Just an amazing ensemble cast of guys. A much bigger story, much bigger production. And I think there are more dead bodies and more action in the first 10 minutes of this movie than there were in the whole first movie. It's pretty remarkable.
Did you know Chuck before you doing this movie, or was this your first experience with Chuck Norris?
I had the good fortune to have met him through my mixed martial arts career and gotten to know him a little bit. Just an amazingly nice guy. Definitely knows the industry. What you talk about, a guy who fought Bruce Lee, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a legend as a martial artist and as an action icon for sure. Bruce
Willis and Arnold Schwarzenegger with cameos in the first movie. They have a bigger role in this movie. How much more are we going to see of those guys?
You're definitely going to see a lot more of those two guys, and I think that was exciting for all of us in the cast because, the governor was still the governor when we shot the first one. They had to shoot that scene on Sunday. None of us were really around. It was almost a rumor on set that they were even going to be in the movie, and nobody really knew if it was going to happen or not. And so then to hear that they were back and they actually pick up guns and get into the story and get into it made it a lot of fun.
Now, are you getting more screen time in this movie than you did in the last one?
I think that Dolph, Terry Crews, and myself, we're kind of the nuts and bolts of this movie. We're the backbone. We're the guys that get things done and are kind of sprinkled throughout the entire film from start to finish. But because because of that, I think us three developed a kind of real special rapport and had a lot of fun doing all the things that we get to do in this movie.
Now, with all the action that goes on in a movie like this, Randy, did you suffer any injuries? Did you get hurt at all, either in the first one or in this movie?
I didn't get hurt. Obviously, Sly weathered an amazing amount of stuff in the first movie, breaking his neck in the fight scene with Steve Austin, and tore his shoulder up pretty good in this one, jumping out of a truck of all things. Things really get put in perspective, when you see what the stunt guys go through and see the kind of and this is an old school action film, not a lot of wires. When you're running through a set and stuff is blowing up and you're like, man, that was hot. That was real fire. It kind of puts things in perspective for you.
Now, with Sylvester Stallone, he wrote and directed the first one. He's stepping out of the director's chair on this one, but I would still imagine he still has a lot of input as how this movie's being made.
Absolutely. He was doing all the rewrites, and it was kind of nice in this one because he was a much more relaxed Sly Stallone. I don't know how he made it through the first one with everything that he did, all the hats that he wore, both being in front of the camera, behind the camera as the director, and the author rewriting and doing everything that he had to do. And it's still his intellectual property, so there was definitely a collaboration with Simon West, who's a terrific director, and Sly on this one. We got to kind of spend a little more quality time as actors working with Sly, who's a guy that's so bright, so smart. And I think the thing that people are going to be shocked with this movie is how funny it is. And a lot of that comes directly from Sly. People don't realize what a sense of humor he has.
The first one had some great funny moments in it, too, and I think that's one of the things that makes the last movie, and I'm sure this movie, so great, is that, you get all this awesome action, you get a lot of bone-crunching, if you will, but then you get this sense of humor throughout. That's what I think really pulls the whole thing together.
Absolutely. You get four of the biggest action icons in the industry, all pulling out one-liners, which they are all notorious for, and all poking fun at each other, which, who else could really do that and get away with it?
Well, I'm, for one, excited to see this movie myself. I've been waiting for it since I heard they were making it, so I'm looking forward to it. And I know, obviously, Sylvester has been going through a very tough time right now, and how's he holding up?
He's doing pretty well. All of us in the cast are parents. We all have kids, and so our hearts go out to him, and it's very difficult being in that situation and then still having to kind of do your job and be in the public eye. So it's been tough, and I think he's doing very well. I think the best thing that we've been able to do is kind of nail it down for him and be there to let him go grieve with his family and do the things he needed to do.
Well, when you see him, give him my best, and I can't even imagine what he's going through, but all the entertainment he's given us over the years, it's the least that we can do as fans is just give him our best. And I appreciate, again, taking the time to talk about the movie. And I think it's going to be huge for you guys. And Expendables 3, you think?
Oh, we're definitely rumblings and rumors and talk of doing a third one for sure.
Excellent, Randy. Randy, thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Enjoy the sun up there.